Aloha and welcome to the monthly public presentation of the Vegetarian Society of Hawaii. Since 1990, the Vegetarian Society of Hawaii has been following our mission of promoting human health, animal rights, and protection of the environment by means of vegetarian education, as we've grown to become one of the largest all-volunteer, nonprofit vegetarian societies in the nation. It is now time to introduce our special guest. We're delighted to have back with us tonight Dr. Michael Clapper. Michael Clapper, MD, is a 1972 graduate of the University of Illinois College of Medicine in Chicago, with postgraduate training in internal medicine, surgery, anesthesiology, and orthopedics at the University of British Columbia Hospitals in Vancouver, and obstetrics at the University of California's San Francisco. Dr. Clapper has practiced acute care medicine here in Hawaii, as well as in Canada, California, Florida, and New Zealand. Far more fulfilling to him is his current practice, focusing on health-promoting food and lifestyle choices to help people stay out of hospitals and off operating tables. A long-time radio host and a pilot, Dr. Clapper has served as nutrition advisor to NASA's programs for space colonists on the Moon and Mars. To minimize suffering of all sentient beings, Dr. Clapper adopted a vegan diet and lifestyle in 1981. He currently practices nutritionally based medicine at True North Health Center in Santa Rosa, California. His presentation tonight is entitled, "What I Wish Someone Had Told Me in Medical School About Nutrition." Please join me in welcoming Dr. Michael Clapper.
Well, aloha, kahako, aloha. I was privileged to call these beautiful islands my home for 11 years. I lived on Maui from 1995 to 2006. Practiced medicine and took care of my mother in her final years. And these islands are deep in my heart. When I left to go practice in New Zealand, I felt an ache as I got on that plane, and that ache continues today whenever I'm away from the islands. And it's so beautiful. Just as soon as you get off the plane here, that lovely air just welcomes you home. And it's good to see all these lovely smiling faces again. Well, two familiar ones. Yay, that's good. And to all the new ones, so welcome, welcome, welcome. Well, as you heard, the topic tonight is what I wish someone had told me in medical school about nutrition. This is the University of Illinois College of Medicine in Chicago. Fine medical school, in the top 10 in the nation, and anyone who attends there is going to get a fine basic medical education. And I entered there in 1968, and after 4 years of intense study, in 1972 at McCormick Place in Chicago, I walked across the stage. They handed me my diploma and called me doctor for the first time. This is how I looked on that day in 1972, and as you can see, I have not changed a bit. Thank you. That was an honest response. Good. And I received a top quality education and all the basic sciences, all the clinical sciences. Superb instructors did I have. And when I left, I was well equipped to deal with any disease that happened to cross my path. And from what I had learned in school, I thought I was going to be seeing 8 cases of leprosy every week. Sure, I was going to see at least 6 of smallpox, 4 of diphtheria, I was certain, still looking for that first membrane on the back of the throat. Thought I'd probably see 1 or 2 of bubonic plague every year, and of course I would be deluged with cases of Tsutsugamuchi fever. I know all the presenting signs of Tsutsugamuchi fever. Been a physician for 45 years. Know how many cases of leprosy I've seen. Saw 1 once in Louisiana. Smallpox, thank God, never. Diphtheria, thank God, never. Bubonic plague, thank heavens, never. And I'm still looking for my first case of Tsutsugamuchi fever. and 45 years of caring for thousands of patients. Though I was looking for these deathly ill patients, the majority of people I took care of essentially looked like this. This is Ken, one of my favorite patients. Sweet guy, funny guy, lovely man in California. Nice fella, but medically, he was pretty much of a disaster. He was clinically obese, weighed about 60, 70 pounds. He was on 2 medications for his blood pressure, thoroughly diabetic, on 2 medications for diabetes plus injectable insulin. His lipids were out of sight, out of control, his cholesterol, LDL, and his arteries were so clogged up that he hadn't been able to sustain an erection for years. This is Ken. And for the past 45 years, I've been struggling with Ken and his ilk. You may know a Ken in your life, you may be a Ken, and struggling with these issues. And I knew as soon as I called Ken's name in the waiting room and I took a look at him, I knew what his arteries looked like. I knew what was going on in the walls of those arteries. When he was a young man, they started out clear and pristine. And I was well aware of the atherosclerotic plaques that were building up in his arteries. His erectile dysfunction told me that. His chest pain when he walked a couple of blocks told me that. And I knew that he was a heart attack or stroke waiting to happen. And I knew a lot about these diseases. I was told, I read it in Robbins Pathology and in my internal medicine text that atherosclerosis, this disease, is a relentlessly progressive disease. Nothing stops it. Nothing can turn it around. But we don't know really what causes it. Etiology unknown, but man, you sure don't want to get it. It looks like it's really bad and looks like an unstoppable freight train. High blood pressure, oh, I knew that mantra. You put them on medications, they will take these pills the rest of their lives. No one gets off antihypertensive medication. Diabetes, oh, quick response. Once on insulin, always on insulin. Nobody gets off insulin. You're diabetic. You've got to take insulin the rest of your life. Autoimmune diseases, ooh, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, ooh, diseases of unknown origin. Ooh, the body is attacking itself. We don't know why. It just seems to happen. And all you can do is give them a whopping dose of prednisone and send them off to the rheumatologist who can't do much more for them either. And nutrition, if you spoke in the operating room or the emergency room about nutrition, where the real doctors were doing real medicine, like fixing broken arms and delivering babies, nutrition, boring stuff. Send them down to the dietitian. She'll give them a 2,000 calorie diet. Don't bother me. I'm up doing real medicine up in Blood and Gutsville up here. I knew all of these things to be true when I graduated. After 45 years of primary care medicine and finally understanding something about nutrition, now what I know is all of these statements are not true. Every single one of them. That dogma that I learned, all these are reversible diseases. And they all have a common cause, having to do with what Ken has been eating day after day. And after 40 years, I found my way to True North Health Center in Santa Rosa, California. We're about an hour north of San Francisco, around 15 minutes north of the Golden Gate Bridge. It's a converted apartment complex. We have 22 apartments. We have room for 44 inpatients. People come with every disease known to man, clogged arteries, high blood pressure, diabetes, arthritis, various forms of cancers, though we don't hold ourselves out as Lourdes Cathedral, but even that can be helped. And I practice the most satisfying medicine of my career. My patients get healthier right before my eyes. We put them on a whole food, plant-based diet, fruit and oatmeal for breakfast, or just tea for breakfast or water. Lunches and dinners are big, glorious salads, hearty vegetable soups, big plates of steamed green and yellow vegetables, lentil stews, quinoa dishes. And we let them eat all they want, no portion control. And this food works its magic, because Ken was making himself obese and clogged up and diabetic and hypertensive from his diet of cheeseburgers and pizzas and fried chicken and salmon and fast foods. This was the cause of his problem, and this is the cure. And our patients get healthy. And people stay anywhere from overnight to 2 years. We've had people live at the clinic till they finally got control of their health problems. And as I said, it's the most satisfying type of medicine I ever thought I would practice. And people get healthier, including my patient, Ken. He came in, stayed with us 12 weeks. After 12 weeks, he was 25 pounds lighter, off his blood pressure medications, off his insulin, no longer diabetic, and came up to me one day with a big grin on his face, said, "Doc, guess what? I was able to raise the flag last night for the first time in years." To which his wife was doubly happy. So this is what we see on a regular basis. And if you have any of these issues or know someone who does, I urge you, realize that the problem's been what they've been eating all along. And the answer is a whole food, plant-based diet. People come to plant-based diets for one of 3 reasons. They're concerned about their health, for good reason. They don't want to be letting their dollars pay for the horrors of the slaughterhouse and the factory farm. Once you know what goes on there, it really, you become complicit in a violent act every time you take your wallet out and pay for a flesh-based meal. And as we become more and more aware of what an animal-based meal does to this planet, it's the major driving ecological destructive force we have to face. For all these reasons, the awareness of evolving our diet to plant-based exclusively, hopefully, is dawning on people around the world. So to state the obvious, for the folks who are just a little tentative about this, I'll just point out that the biggest, strongest, most powerful animals on the planet do not eat meat. Elephants, buffaloes, giraffes, gorillas grow to thousands of pounds of mammalian muscle without ever eating a cheeseburger or pepperoni pizza. You do not have to eat a bull to be as strong as one. All the magnificent muscle on this creature came from the amino acids that grow out of the ground and the grasses and the wild legumes. That's what this animal thrives on, and they turn into the muscle. Even if you eat this animal, it's still the amino acids came from the plants. It's second-hand protein that you're eating. Well, he's a bull. They're supposed to get that big. Now, what about us humans? If you have concerns or reservations that a whole food plant-based diet is an appropriate fuel to make a magnificent body, do yourself a favor, fire up your web browser and type in 3 words, vegan bodybuilders or plant-based athletes, and hit images and see who fills up your screen. I'll ask you, do any of these magnificent people look protein deficient to you? No. I know them all, they're all lovely people. Just want to point out, here's Jim Morris at age 61. Here's Jim Morris at age 71. On rice and beans and greens. Both. Okay. All the nutrients that we need grow out of the ground. And if you're willing to put the sweat in the gym, you can turn those rice and beans and greens into a body that looks like this, but no need. You want to be able to get up and walk every day without pain, enough energy to get up the stairs and hold your grandkids, and a plant-based diet will certainly do that for you. So a couple of tips about optimizing nutrition on a plant-based diet. First of all, you got to eat the food. It's got to be whole, it's got to be vital, it's got to be real food. It looks like this. You got to really eat the salads, folks. You got to really eat the steamed greens and the yellow vegetables and the fruits. You can't do this on energy drinks and granola bars. Seriously, when I have folks come up to me and say, I'm not feeling so great on this diet. I say, take me through your eating day. What do you really eat? And they start off in the morning with some big fruit smoothie. They throw some protein powder in there. And the rest of the day comes out of packages and boxes. There's nothing live or vital in their diet. And no wonder they don't have much in the way of energy. This is not whole food. This is not vital food, as delicious as it may be in your mouth. In fact, when you walk into the grocery store, this may call your name as you walk by, and it often has very good pronunciation. Ooh, come over here, we're crunchy and salty and sweet. You'll like us. Pick one up. When you see this is not whole food. This will not lead you to where you want your health to go. This is not food. This is, as Michael Pollan says, edible food-like substances out of brightly colored packages and boxes. You do not want to eat edible food-like substances out of brightly colored packages and boxes. You want to eat real food. When you see this and it calls your name and you are tempted, what do? I suggest you pull out your 3-word magic wand, point it directly at the display, and say, that's not food. It's not, okay? And go to the produce department and buy a mango or two. What this is an example of is the pleasure trap. These are foods that have been calculated to bring a chemical jolt up to your brain where the pleasure centers stimulate the release of dopamine and other feel-good chemicals. That's what these substances do. They are not real food. And you keep going back to these and you find yourself stuck in the pleasure trap. And there's an excellent book by that name by Dr. Goldhammer and Dr. Lyle talking about how to get out of the pleasure trap. As Dr. Hansdeel says, you want to eat food as grown, as it's growing in the field. You like potatoes? Great, eat potatoes, not potato chips. You like corn on the cob? Great, eat corn, not corn chips. Real food, okay, like it was growing in the field. As Dr. Furman says, the salad is the main dish. Man, if there's anything you can do for yourself, have a big, fresh salad at least once a day, if not twice a day. Really, really important. Okay, that's where the vital nutrients are. So that's where it starts. You got to eat the food, really. Now you got to absorb the nutrients. What does that mean? You know, everybody's heard that phrase, you are what you eat. Well, actually, it's wrong. You are what you absorb. If those nutrients don't make it from the food across your intestinal membrane and into your bloodstream and be delivered to your tissues, you may well have eaten it. It passes out in the toilet. Now, there's a big difference between animal foods and plant foods, and you can see it when you look under the microscope. They're very different. Animal cells, like muscle cells, which is what you're eating when you eat a steak or a lamb chop or a pork chop, you're eating the muscle of that animal. It's got all the nutrients that these foods supply in a very soft, easy to break membrane. In here is the protein and the vitamins and minerals. And it's a very sloppy, soft, squishy membrane that surrounds it called the cell membrane. But you put a piece of kale under the microscope, you put a piece of carrot or lettuce, you can tell immediately it's from the plant kingdom, because plants have something animals don't. And that is this wall of cellulose. Cell walls are what make plants plants. Now, this cellulose stuff is tough stuff. It's a carbohydrate, it's a sugar, and the plants use it for their structural materials. They make their leaves and roots and stems out of these cellulose cells. Trees make a lot of cellulose. We cut them down and turn them into paper and 2x4s. This is cellulose. Well, we do not have enzymes to break down cellulose. Bacteria do, we don't. And all the nutritional goodies that we want out of that kale or that carrot or that potato is wrapped up in this wall of cellulose. And we have to break that wall down to get the nutrients out. We've got to break down the cell walls. The question is, how do we do that? Well, fortunately, Mother Nature came to our rescue, gave us 32 of the best juicers on the planet, 16 in our upper jaw and 16 in our lower jaw, and the invitation is to use them. The most important thing you can do to increase the absorption of your nutrients is put a forkful of salad in your mouth, put the bloody fork down, and make salad puree in your mouth before you swallow it. You don't have to do it 100 times like Fletcher said, but take an extra 10 seconds with every mouthful. Chew it to a cream before you swallow it. First of all, you'll enjoy it more. That's when you taste things. But also you are liquefying it so your digestive material, your digestive machinery can absorb those nutrients into your bloodstream. Now, some people don't have good teeth, and that's an issue if you're eating a high fiber diet. So at our clinic, we don't hesitate to have the clients ladle out a big bowl of soup or a big plate of salad, and we take it into the kitchen and we put it in the Vitamix and we'll blend it for them. And we do lots of blended soups and blended salads. Perfectly legitimate thing to do if you can't do it yourself. And it's important to be fully present. We tell the folks, eating is a sacred act. A lot of people went to a lot of trouble to grow that tomato, to harvest it, to get it to market, to get it to your table. Honor the woman, honor the man who grew it. Turn off the television. Be fully present as you eat each one of these wonderful dishes that are set before you. We take them for granted. People in Syria tonight would love to have what we eat on a daily basis. Now, so chewing is the most important thing you can do to absorb your nutrients, but there's a couple of other things. As I mentioned, iron and zinc and magnesium can be a little challenging. So it's always a good idea, if you're going to be making beans, to soak them overnight, or for a day or two, let them begin to sprout and let the enzymes in the beans and the peas start digesting the sugars and proteins for you. It makes it much easier to absorb. You should soak your legumes, beans, peas, chickpeas, lentils, and nuts, almonds. Soak them overnight before cooking, increases the assimilation. As I said, you can sprout the beans and greens, kind of pre-digest them. And when you make a soup or a stew, the hot water ruptures a lot of the cell walls, and the broth in the soup is really rich in minerals. And we can talk about the raw food, cooked food issue, but one advantage that a cooked with water, a cooked dish has, whether it's a soup or a stew, is it makes the minerals much more bioavailable. And so hearty vegetable soups and stews should be a regular visitor to your table as well. Now, iron can be a tough mineral to absorb. You only absorb about 1% of the iron that you eat at the best. And if you are a growing person, or you are a woman of reproductive age and you are losing iron every month in the menstrual flow, it's really important that you keep up with your iron stores so you do not develop an anemia. Well, it turns out that you can increase the absorption of iron by a factor of 6 times with the presence of vitamin C. Does that mean you gotta take a vitamin C tablet with your salad? No. But if you've got a big plate of broccoli or kale in front of you, squeeze some lemon juice on it. If you're making spinach salad, throw some mandarin orange slices in there. Get that citrus and greens combination going as often as you can, and you'll increase the absorption of iron as well as magnesium. If you're a guy, been a red meat eater all your life, you don't need to do this. We have enough iron on board and we can't get rid of it. Now, another way to increase the absorption of zinc is to take advantage of some of the essential oils in garlic and onions. When you saute them in a broth before you put in your greens or your beans to make your soup or your saute, you'll increase the absorption of zinc by the presence of the garlic and onions as well. Everyone should have a big plate of something dark and green every day, whether it's kale, chard, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, asparagus. You don't go to bed at night so you can look back over your eating day and say, oh yeah, I had a big helping of kale at lunch, or oh, I had a big helping of broccoli at dinner. You want a big plate of it. So much good things in there, from magnesium and calcium to omega-3 fatty acids in the cell walls. But it turns out that cruciferous vegetables, those are in the cabbage family, broccoli, Brussels sprouts. It turns out as you're preparing them, if you cut them and let them sit on the cutting board for 5 or 10 minutes, the air will activate enzymes that help enzymes in your body increase the amount of nitric oxide in your artery walls. It's really healthy for your arteries to cut up these vegetables, and before you put them right into the hot water or the soup, to let them sit out in the air for 5 or 10 minutes, and you'll develop more of the nitric oxide enhancing properties of the substance. Okay. Those are general techniques about what you want to eat and how you might want to prepare them, and particular combinations that increase the absorption of the food, of the nutrients. But again, it starts with slowing down. We're in such a hurry, man. I got a plane to catch, got a meeting to make, and we're shoving that food in, 2 chews, boop, down it goes. And no wonder people get all gassy and bloated and don't feel good. They swallowed a bunch of air and fiber and didn't get the nutrients out of it that they needed. Now, a couple of particular nutrients that are of concern to me and I really want to share with you tonight. And one of them is iodine. Iodine is an earth element. It's in the soils. It's in the ocean. Our body needs it. In the base of our neck, we have this gland called our thyroid gland. It puts out a hormone called thyroxine that regulates how quickly our cells burn energy. You want to have just the right amount of thyroxine in your blood, and for the thyroid gland to make thyroxine, here's the molecule of thyroxine, and these 4 purple globes, these are atoms of iodine. You need 4 atoms of iodine to assemble every molecule of thyroxine. And if your diet is short of iodine, you're going to be short on thyroid hormone. And I think a significant amount of vegans who have come to me over the years said, Doc, man, I felt great when I first been on this way to eat, but it's been 3 years now, and man, I don't have the energy. I'm dragging it, man. And what's turning out when you go over their diet, there's been very little iodine in their diet, and what they're looking at is subclinical hypothyroidism. You know, these folks have low thyroid function from iodine deficiency. And I think it's one of the really common causes of vegans failing to thrive. So I want to share with you, if you're doing this for real, make sure you've got an iodine source in your diet. Now, what does that look like? Well, if you want to do it just with food, there certainly are some foods that this planet provides that are rich in iodine. A number of them are found in the ocean. There are sea vegetables. Folks familiar with Japanese cuisine here will recognize wakame, and you get it at the Japanese restaurants with your salad. And it comes in dried packages, and the best thing to do is put it into, take a big gob of it, put it in water, let it soak for a couple of hours, and then throw that soaked gob of it into your soup or your salad, 3 times a week. And that will meet your iodine needs quite handily. There is another sea vegetable called arame, and this is what it looks like. You've probably seen this as well. And again, soak a gob of it in some water for a couple hours and throw it into your soup or your salad 3 times a week, and you will meet your iodine needs. And finally, there is dulse, also a very rich source of iodine. And again, soak it and throw a tablespoon of it into your soup or salad 3 times a week. So these are good standbys. They're delicious and add a very interesting twist to the flavors of your soups and salads, and highly recommended. Now, kelp is a seaweed that is very high in iodine. And if you take too much iodine, you know, a little is good, more must be better, not so with iodine. You take too much iodine, you will flood your thyroid with iodine, and it'll actually depress your thyroid function. You'll create the very thyroid deficiency you're trying to cure with all this iodine. So you don't want to be taking kelp tablets, way too much iodine. If you do use kelp, get it in a shaker and just a couple of sprinkles on your salad a couple times a week is all you need. Don't go overboard with the kelp. And one you don't want to take at all is hijiki. It's an innocent plant, but it has a real avid uptake of arsenic, and the numbers that they've been getting on hijiki have been very shockingly high with arsenic, so you don't want to use hijiki in your soups or salads. Now, another source of iodine, if you don't want to get into the sea vegetable thing, is a pinch of iodized salt on your vegetables. Oh no, did Dr. Clapper say use salt on your food? At True North, we have a salt, oil, and sugar-free cuisine. This is added salt, because there's sodium in the vegetables. You don't really need to add any. But that said, there are people who do need a little extra sodium. And if the amount is really tiny, we're talking, as you see, we're talking about a pinch, literally a pinch, on the vegetables, because it's on the surface of the vegetable, the salt crystals hit your tongue right away. You get a big salty hit for very little actual sodium, as opposed to going to the Italian restaurant where the spaghetti sauce is full of salt and you can't do anything about it. It's already in there. You can't even taste it, but you're eating all the salt in all the processed foods and the packaged foods. So if you're making the vegetables yourself, don't cook with it, but add a little bit at the table, and you can use a little pinch of salt. And it's ironic, people are there, oh, salt's a big enemy now. Oh, we took the salt shakers off our table. Actually, that's the one place you do want that. That's the one place you've got control over the salt, and you can add a little bit, so that's okay. Now, people say, well, I use sea salt. I use pink Himalayan sea salt, and it came from the sea. So it's got lots of iodine. I got that one covered, Doc. Actually, you don't. Why not? Sea salt does not have iodine. What do you mean sea salt doesn't have iodine? No, it doesn't, folks. A little high school chemistry reminder. Remember this wonderful image? It brings back lots of memories from high school chemistry. This is the periodic table of elements, of course. This column here, these are called the halogens: fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine, and astatine. They have some common characteristics. And the one that's familiar to you is when you go to the swimming pool and you got your nose just above the surface of the water. What do you smell coming off there? Chlorine, absolutely. Because chlorine is volatile, it evaporates. All the halogens are volatile gases. They all evaporate. Well, here's chlorine, and right below bromine is iodine, and it is a volatile halogen as well. So how do you make sea salt? You take seawater and you put it out in these shallow trays in the hot sun, and you let that hot sun evaporate off the water, which it does, and it leaves sodium chloride behind, but guess what else evaporates in that hot sun? The iodine. And for that reason, sea salt, classic sea salt, does not have enough iodine for you to rely on for your thyroid. You can, however, get iodized sea salt. And feel free to do that. That's where the iodine's been added back in. And so if you're going to be using sea salt, make sure it's iodized sea salt. Okay? Okay. All of us nutrition docs have gotten really humbled by the whole multivitamin issue. When I grew up, man, take your multivitamin, take your one a day, take your Geritol, high potency multivitamins, good for you, makes up for those nutritional deficiencies you may be having that you're not aware of. And it seemed like a good idea at the time. How many times have we gotten ourselves in trouble with that? Well, it seemed like a good idea at the time. Well, it turns out that we were way wrong on that one. It's got vitamin A, beta-carotene, 30,000 units, wonderful, must be good for me. That's theory. Science says, what really happens to people who take these high-dose vitamins? Well, it turns out that you can't get rid of 30,000 units of beta carotene every day. And it starts building up into high levels in your body and starts making your cell membranes unstable. And if you have a little lung cancer growing, like the smokers in Scandinavia did, beta carotene makes your cancer grow faster. Too much vitamin A creates hip fractures. Let me make this clear. When you eat a carrot, yay, carrots, wonderful. What makes a carrot yellow? There's a whole family of flavonoids called carotenes. Alpha carotene, beta carotene, gamma carotene, epsilon carotene, delta carotene. There's a whole bunch of them. They're stabilizing molecules that keep the integrity of the carrot root. And they're present in very modest amounts, and they all work together in a symphony to stabilize the tissue of the carrot. But the vitamin manufacturers take one of those carotenes. They'll take beta carotene, and they'll concentrate it up to 20, 30,000 units. At that point, you've created a drug, and it's got pharmaceutical effects, not all of which are good. High-dose folic acid gives women breast cancer and gives guys prostate cancer. Who knew? Folic acid, not folate in green vegetables. Yay, folate. But this is folic acid in the synthetic form that they put in the multivitamins. It's the same thing. No, it's not. And high-dose folic acid causes all sorts of problems. Too much iron causes problems. Too much copper causes problems. So we back off the multivitamins. A little B12, which we'll talk about, fine. A little vitamin D if you need it, fine. Maybe a little omega-3 fats, and that's it. So do I take a multivitamin? I do, but the only one that I use is one where the maker is tuned into all this. And they finally came up with a decent multivitamin. They took out, there is no beta carotene, there is no vitamin A, there is no folic acid. And everything else has been toned down to very, very modest amounts. 100 milligrams of vitamin C, maybe that's what's in an orange. So why do I bother taking it? Because it's got 3 nutrients that I know I would want to make sure is adequate. It's got 2,000 of D, which is a standard dose that everybody will benefit from. And so that eliminates the need to take extra vitamin D. Here's 200 micrograms of B12. Got that one covered, so I don't have to take additional vitamin B12. And here is 150 micrograms of iodine that covers my thyroid needs. And 15 of zinc, which can be a little tough for vegans to get. So have a look at your multivitamin label, and unless it's anything like this, if you see beta carotene, you see folic acid on there, don't be taking it. Find one that's toned down in this very, very appropriate and modest amounts of these nutrients, but make sure that it certainly covers your B12 and iodine needs for sure. Now, speaking of vitamin B12, this is a real issue, especially if you're a long-term plant-only person. This is vitamin B12 molecule, beautiful molecule. It's got this symmetrical lattice nucleus here and this little tail that comes down. Wonderful vitamin. And it's absolutely essential to keep your brain functioning, keep your spinal cord functioning. Do not mess with a B12 deficiency. It will cause dementia. It will damage your spinal cord. It will kill you if it goes uncorrected. This is serious business. Now, why do vegans have to take B12? If this is a natural diet for humans, why do we have to take a B12 supplement? What's up with that? Well, the answer to that is where vitamin B12 comes from. It's made by microbes that live in the soil. Cows don't make it, pigs don't make it, chickens don't make it. No animal makes vitamin B12. The meat eater, I eat my meat to get my B12. Cows don't make it. The grazing animals have vitamin B12 in their muscles because they're eating grass all day. Yes, even geese are grazing animals. And they're pulling up clumps of grass that have soil particles cling to the roots. And in these soil particles are the microbes that make vitamin B12. The animal swallows the microbes, they produce the B12, the animal absorbs it into its muscles. Yes, you can shoot the cow and strip the flesh off its bones and eat it and get B12 that way. But it was bacterial B12 all along. The cow didn't make it. It's even in the waters of the natural world. Every time the rains come, soil washes into the rivers and streams. So the streams in natural settings have vitamin B12 and the animals consume it there as well. Well, guess what? Sheep and cows and geese are not the only foraging animals that ingest vitamin B12 with their food. We used to drink from streams too. We used to drink from rivers. And we don't eat grass and pull up the roots, but the majority of our days back in the Paleolithic times were spent foraging. And the women spent all day gathering roots and tubers and wild grasses, and they weren't washed in chlorinated drinking water like we do today, and so there would be vitamin B12 coming into our daily diet just like the animals have. And in the Paleolithic time, in fact, if you go to the fossil record there, you don't find any old vitamin B12 supplement bottles at all. They didn't need them because they got B12 off their food. Well, welcome to the 21st century. Nobody is drinking out of streams anymore. Nobody's eating unwashed vegetables anymore. And due to modern sanitation, the natural plant-based sources of vitamin B12 had dropped out of the modern vegan's life. It's okay with me. I don't want to be treating cases of cholera and typhoid fever from people drinking contaminated stream water. That's okay. But still, you need to get that B12. And it's for that reason it's the bargain we've made for community sanitary water that the B12 has disappeared from our diet. And for that reason, modern vegans today have to assure themselves a active vitamin B12 source. The form that I like is called methylcobalamin, and you get it at any health food store, get it online, 500 to 1,000 micrograms once a week, twice a week. It's stored in your liver. You don't need to take it every day. But once or twice a week, have something with B12 in it. It's in soy milk, it's in some veggie burgers, but get an official supplement and take it. And don't even run the risk of this, okay? And when they ask you, well, if it's natural, why do you diet? Why do you have to take B12 supplement? Because of modern sanitation and the need for a healthy water supply. Now that said, now that we've covered the B12 issue, and this is the B12 molecule, turns out that a lot of organisms in the plant world make or try to make vitamin B12 for their own needs. They come close, but no cigar. This is a fairly close approximation, but to you chemistry geeks out there, you'll notice that this pentose with the two nitrogens, that's now been broken open here. The phosphorus here that had a hydroxyl group now has a double bonded oxygen to it, and this pentose ring has now been broken open as well. So it's not the same molecule, and it doesn't do what B12 does. It will not keep your brain healthy, will not keep your spinal cord healthy. But what it will do is occupy the receptor sites on your nerve cells so real B12 can't get in. You don't want to be taking these B12 analogs. Well, it turns out that some sea vegetables make these B12 analogs. And for that reason, as I said, to get your iodine, if you use the sea vegetables, do them a couple times a week, but don't take it on the day that you're also taking your B12 supplement. Okay? Take your B12 supplement on a Sunday, start adding the sea vegetables to your salad on Wednesday or Thursday, but space it out a little bit. Don't flood your body with these B12 analogs when you're trying to get real B12 into your tissues. Okay? Okay. Now, speaking of B12 analogs, surprise, surprise, there's a couple of health supplements generally recognized as good for you that aren't. Spirulina and blue-green algae. If anybody's taken them, I'd suggest you reconsider that strategy because they are loaded with B12 analogs. They analyzed spirulina tablets, and 83% of the molecules that look like B12 were actually B12 analogs. And the same thing with blue-green algae. Same thing. These B12 analogs, pseudo-B12, turns out to be the predominant substance, and it is definitely not suitable for vegans, and it will block your real B12 from getting in there. So you don't need these green powders. You need green food. You need green vegetables. Eat them. But if you're taking spirulina or blue-green algae and think you're doing something good for yourself, you're not. Reconsider that. The last nutrient that I want to talk about are these long-chain fatty acids that we need. Our skin oils are made of them. Our brain is wrapped in them. Our hormones are made of them. You need fats. Fats are not evil. We need them to live. Got to be the right kind of fats in the right amounts, but you need some fat every day. And the most important fats to get are these. They're long chains of carbon atoms, like a string of pearls here. And I don't want to make this a chemistry class, but note that there's a single electron bond between all these carbons, but at number 3 here, you run into this double bond. And the chemists think that's important, and so if you run into the first double bond at carbon atom number 1, 2, 3, then you are looking at an omega-3 fatty acid. This one, that's 18 carbon atoms long, is called linolenic acid, and it is what is found in flax seeds and walnuts and hemp seeds and dark green leafy vegetables. You need this stuff. That's why you want a big plate of greens every day, you want a handful of walnuts, you want a tablespoon of ground flax or hemp seeds on your oatmeal. This is important stuff to get. We can't make this stuff, so you need to eat it. But it's not what your body really requires to make your hormones and your nerve tissue. It needs a longer chain. This is only 18 carbon atoms long. So your body, clever chemist that it is, when you eat the flax seeds and the walnuts and the dark leafy greens, and this linolenic acid stuff comes into your body, your enzymes in your cells add 2 more carbon atoms onto the chain, and now they've created 18 plus 2 is 20. Now they got 20 carbon atoms long, the chysopentanoic acid, and its initials are EPA. Very important. Your body can do good things with EPA, but it's not really the final destination. What your body really needs is even longer. It's 2 more carbons long. This is 20. You need to add another 2 carbon fragment and make one 22 carbon atoms long, and that's called DHA. Sorry, it's down here. Should have made that last time. This is DHA. This is what your body really needs to make your nerves, to make your hormones, make your skin oils, etc. So you eat the hemp seeds, the flax seeds, the dark leafy greens. But 2 enzyme steps are required to turn it into that DHA that we need. Why is this? Why am I telling you this? Because this reaction, on a good day, is only 10% efficient. Only 10% of the linolenic acid that you take in the walnuts and the flax seeds actually turns in to DHA. That's a little dicey. That puts you right on the edge of getting enough. Now we got another issue here. Because clinical studies suggest that tissue levels of long-chain omega-3 fatty acid are depressed in vegetarians, particularly in vegans. Seems we have a tough time getting enough of this stuff. Why? Because we're living in modern life. We're not spending all day foraging for wild greens. Turns out these 2 enzymes steps that lengthen this chain from 18 to 20 to 22 These enzymes, at a good day, is only 10% efficient. They're inhibited by the junky omega-6 oils that are in safflower oil, sunflower oil, cottonseed oil, peanut oil, the junky industrial oils that the chips are fried in, and the schmips and the restaurant food and the French fries and the snack foods. And we eat that stuff. And those omega-6 fats, they steal the enzymes for their own needs, and they turn this 10% efficiency into 2% efficiency. So another reason you don't want to eat those brightly colored packaged in boxes stuff, because they're full of omega-6 fats that will cheat you out of the omega-3s that you need. But even so, studies show that, there's another study, low levels of omega-3 fats in the vegetarians and the vegans, so much so that the researchers concluded that to ensure physical, mental, and neurologic health, vegetarians have to reduce those omega-6, but also, if you're smart, you'll also add some DHA directly. So what should the smart plant eater do? Absolutely. Have a big Gesundheit helping of something dark and green every day. It's serious business, folks, because the dark greens have some of this omega-3 linolenic acid in it. So for all sorts of good reasons, calcium, magnesium, omega-3, eat your greens. Your mother was right, eat your greens. You want a tablespoon or two of ground flax or hemp and a handful of walnuts daily. You really want to avoid that processed, junky omega-6 oils and animal fats. But I would consider, and I take some, based on those studies and what I've seen, and I think another cause of the long-term vegan doc, I'm just not feeling as good as I did. I suspect they may have an omega-3 deficiency as well. So what do? Well, increase your walnuts, I guess. But the omega-3 fats, this DHA stuff, EPA, you've probably heard of it because it's what's in fish oil. Ooh, let's all have some fish oil. No, let's not. Why not? A couple of reasons. One, most important, fish don't make it. Let me say that again. In the same way that cows and pigs don't make vitamin B12, they get it out of the microbes, fish don't make DHA either. It's made by plants. In this case, the plants are algae cells that float in the ocean. They take the sunlight and they make this DHA stuff. The fish swim in the ocean with their mouths open, swallowing algae all day. And it's the algae DHA that winds up in the fish's flesh. And yes, you can kill the fish and grind them up and squeeze out the fish oil to get the DHA. But it was from the algae all along, just like the B12 was from the microbes. The DHA, it's really from the algae. Well, now they are growing the algae directly in big vats of pure seawater, and they're harvesting the algae, and they're extracting the DHA right out of the algae. Time to leave the fish off the hook, and we are running out of fish, and there's no reason to eat fish oil for DHA. Get it from the algae. I'll show you what the products look like. If you're concerned, you can get your DHA levels checked. There are labs that will do it. Your naturopath or chiropractor from Genova can order a blood spot test. It's all done through the mail. And you get this little card with a little stylet. You prick your finger, and you fill up the 4 little circles with blood, and you get a readout of what your omega-3s and omega-6 and your DHA and all that is. Life Extension Lab, also, you can order it right off the internet. Their Omega Check panel tells you the same thing. I have no connection with any of these labs, but this is how it's done if you want to. Or you just take some, and I do. The dosage is between 150 to 300 a day. Either, pop one veggie cap, but the important thing, it says from algae derived. 100% vegan, it's from algae. You'll see it there, okay? So I don't care which one you use, but if I were you, the only other, because we're not spending all day foraging for the grasses and for the nuts, etc. And seeing what these studies show, I think the smart supplements would be certainly some B12 and certainly some vegan DHA, and that's basically all you really need. Another reason that people may not have the energy they want is because they're not moving their body. We are animals. Man, you got to move. It's part of having an animal body. Part of the plants get to do it in one place, but we got to move, and as part of the bargain, get out and walk. Take a little 3-pound hand weight in each hand and go for a 40-minute walk. It'll tone up your upper body, and get your bones stronger. It reverses osteoporosis. Become a walker and put on either a light-weighted vest or carry some hand weights or both, and tone up your body and become a healthy animal again. Do you need tests? Not really, but if you want, here they are. Once a year, I have folks get a blood count, a metabolic profile for liver and kidney function, check their thyroid, make sure they're getting enough iodine, check their B12 level, and if they don't have enough, then these things called MMA and homocysteine goes up, check their vitamin D. And if there are people who are just not thriving after a year, I'll send off a fatty acid profile, maybe a mineral profile, and an amino acid profile. Because I get the folks who aren't doing well, Doc, I think I need more protein. My friends are all telling me I'm not getting enough protein, no wonder I feel bad. There is so much protein in a whole food plant-based diet. The beans and peas and chickpeas and lentils and seeds and nuts and quinoa. We have protein out the wazoo. I've never really seen a protein deficient vegan per se. But if you want to find out, I think I need some meat, then you can find out. Maintain a completely squeaky clean plant-based diet for at least 3 months, 6 months is even better, and then have your chiropractor, naturopath order an amino acid profile, see what your amino acids are after 3 to 6 months on a completely plant-based diet, and then if you're inclined, go have a debauch, eat some animal flesh for 5 days running, 7 days running, and then repeat the same amino acid profile and see if anything's changed. If there has been a big increase in a particular amino acid, see if you can maybe there are plants that have that. Maybe you just need to eat more lentils or something like that. But if you want to find out, is it protein deficient, you can find out. But it's seldom protein as an issue. As I said, it's usually iodine, it's usually omega-3 fatty acid, it's usually B12. But here we are talking about protein deficiency. And that gets us around to this guy. Oh, I tried to eat a vegan diet once, Doc. Didn't work for me. My body needs animal protein. So, let's talk about this whole philosophy of the paleo diet, who believes that every caveman, every Neanderthal had a mastodon in the freezer and spent all day eating mammoth meat. I'm a caveman, I eat mammoth meat, that's what I do. Every meal, fresh meat, that's what we eat. It's all that's available. And whatever greens are growing around. Don't eat those carbs, they make you fat. And if you eat no carbohydrates and run your body on fats, the breakdown product of those fats are called ketones. And your blood will be filled with them, so you are in a state of ketosis. And the paleo folks say, that's a good thing. You want to keep yourself in, they want a ketogenic diet. You want to keep yourself in ketosis. It's a ketone state that makes you trim and healthy. As a physician who did study biochemistry and physiology, unlike most of these folks, I take great issue with the idea of keeping yourself in ketosis month after month after month. Let's get flesh eating into some perspective here. Paleo folks eat flesh every meal, basically. Most Westerners eat animal flesh 3 times a day. It's the middle of every meal. Bacon and eggs for breakfast, egg McMuffin for breakfast, cheeseburger for lunch, chicken for dinner, salmon for dinner. Meal's not complete without a piece of animal muscle in the middle of the plate. Hey, where's my protein? Hey, no protein in this meal. People, not even mountain lions, eat flesh 3 times a day. Think about it. The tigers in the rainforest, official carnivores, don't eat flesh 3 times a day. once a week if they can get it. Most days they fast. I don't eat anything. No primate eats flesh at all. Yeah, gorilla, chimpanzees, 1% of their diet, they eat some flesh. But by and large, no primate eats animal flesh. We didn't used to either, 3 times a day, all through the history of our country, 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, 1900s, the first part of the 20th century. Man, you had pot roast on Sunday, you had fish on Friday, and that was it. Boy, you ate out of your garden the rest of the week. You had potato soups and cabbage stews. You didn't go killing your chickens every night for buffalo wings, that's for sure. You run out of chickens pretty quickly doing that. We only started eating flesh with every meal since World War II, since we got rich enough to do it, and the government's been subsidizing the corn and soybean farmers so they can shovel all this subsidized grain down the gullets of all these billions of cows and pigs and chickens and sell burgers for $1.50 each. But it's all tax subsidized. If these burgers sold for what they really cost to produce, if they had to pay for the water, they had to pay for the soil erosion, they had to pay for the global warming that is creating, these burgers would cost $80 a piece. But that's not the situation we're in. But just to point it out to you, this 3 times a day animal flesh, who's telling us to do that? You can tell who's telling us. If you look down in the bottom right-hand corner of the nutrition poster, you'll see 4 letters, USDA. It's the Agriculture Department. Makes up the food guidelines for this country. We're the only nation in the world where the Agriculture Department is making up the nutrition guidelines for human beings. What in the world is the Department of Agriculture doing making up the nutrition guidelines? It should be from the Institute of Medicine, NIH, but because of the power of the meat and dairy lobbies, that's who's telling us to eat flesh 3 times a day. I'm here to assert, no matter what the paleo folks are telling us, we have not become carnivorous apes. Simians, our ancestors that gave rise to our cousins, chimpanzees, gorillas, lemurs, tarsiers, also, they've been on this planet 150 million years, and they've been eating leaves and berries and plants all along. And they developed a digestive system to digest plants. For 150 million years. Suddenly, 2 million years ago in the Paleolithic, we didn't suddenly change our anatomy and physiology to become flesh eaters. Our saliva still contains starch-digesting enzymes, not flesh-digesting enzymes like the cats have. Our preferred metabolic fuel is glucose. We're our sugar-burning organisms, not fat-burning organisms. Our mitochondria are looking for glucose. And our intestines are long like herbivores, not short like the carnivores want to get that rotting meat out really quickly. If you have any questions about is man an herbivore or an omnivore, I urge you to get on YouTube and see the superb presentation by Dr. Milton Mills with the title, Is Man an Herbivore or Omnivore? It's not an herbivore or carnivore, omnivore. And he will convince you without question we have a plant-eating body here. Now the paleo folks say, hey, well, what about these? We got canine teeth. What were we giving these canine teeth for if we're not supposed to be eating meat? Ha-ha! To that, I say, go in the bathroom, stand in front of the mirror, open your mouth and smile. What you're going to notice is that your canine teeth are shorter than your central incisors. Here's an X-ray, a dental pantomograph of the entire human mouth. Look how even the teeth are all the way along. Anybody see any big flesh-tearing fangs sticking down here? I don't. Canine teeth, huh? Want to see what canine teeth really look? Want to see some real canines? You have a house cat, open your mouth. If your canines look like this, absolutely, no argument. Go to the butcher shop, get a big slab of porterhouse, go out on the curb, sit down, and don't bother to cook it, man. Just have at it. Make your mouth water to think of that. Stop with the canine teeth nonsense. Look at these teeth. They're flat, grinding molars in the back. And our jaw is a rotary jaw joint that allows us to chew from side to side. True carnivores have a hinged jaw. It goes up and down only. They couldn't chew from side to side if they wanted to. We've got these small teeth with a flat grinding surfaces, not made for digesting flesh. What are they made for? To digest the starchy roots and tubers and grasses and berries and nuts that the women spent a whole day gathering, where the guys are out on their hunting trips. 9 out of 10 times, the guys came back empty-handed. Most hunts were unsuccessful. If they did bag a carcass, it rotted within days, became dangerous to eat it. This idea that every meal had flesh, ooh, nonsense. In fact, if you take the time to go to Africa, like anthropologist Nathaniel Dominy from Dartmouth did, and you examine the skulls of the Cro-Magnon and the Neanderthal folks under the microscope, what you see in between the teeth are starch grains, because that's the majority of calories that were brought into the Paleolithic camp were gathered by the women. Once again, the women got us through the hard times. That supplied the bulk of the calories. When they examined the fossilized fecal droppings of the Neanderthals, 150 grams of fiber a day they each ate. It was a whole food, plant-based diet. So the historical basis for it is a myth. It didn't happen. This big caveman chomping on the dinosaur leg or the mammoth leg. It's fantasy. But from a physician's point of view, I got some real problems with eating flesh on this level on a daily basis. Yes, you'll keep yourself in chronic ketosis. You'll deplete the glycogen out of your muscles, and you will run on fats. This state of ketosis is a remarkable state because back in ancient times, in these Paleolithic times, it might be days before you found the next berry bush with fruit on it or the next zebra carcass rotting in the sun. You may have to fast 5-6 days, like it or not. And during this time, you indeed run off the fat in your muscles. You run into the fat in your tissues, and you go into this ketosis state. And you're not hungry, and you're in an action kind of state. And it's great for a few days, a week, 2. And in our clinic, we do water fasting. We do long fasts. We'll do 30 days up to 40-day fasts. And these folks are in ketosis. We watch them like a hawk. We're checking them twice a day. We're drawing blood. You don't do this on your own. But in medical supervised fasting, we take advantage of the ketotic state. There is a power in it. But it's a stress. These folks turn into dish rags after a while. And my viewing of ketosis is that yes, body can do it. It's useful for a while. But the analogy that I use is an automotive one. When you're driving down the H1 and you're behind a slow truck, what do? You pull out into the passing lane, you hit the accelerator, and your engine finds passing gear. And that surge of power comes from the engine, and you blow past the truck, and you see them fade in the rearview mirror, and you pull back into the lane. Yay, passing gear, wonderful, great. But if you're in San Francisco, you don't want to drive to Seattle in passing gear. You will burn out your bearings. You will destroy your engine. And the ketotic state is the metabolic equivalent of passing gear. It's a special state. You can stay in it for a while. But in my judgment, you don't want to stay in it month after month. Why? These ketones are acid. We're talking about acetone, beta-hydroxybutyric acid. These are acidic molecules. You're giving your body a constant acid load, free fatty acids. Your blood is filled with fatty acids. This is a state of acidosis. This is not an easy state for your body to contend with month after month. All this acid is hard on your bones. It tends to make you lose calcium out through the urine. Magnesium goes out as well. And you're eating animal flesh. All that DNA in that animal's muscle turns into stuff called uric acid. Man, your kidneys have to deal with it, and if they don't deal with it efficiently, you're going to get uric acid kidney stones. You're going to have these uric acid crystals settle out in your joints and give you gout. It's a dirty fuel. When you eat sugars, when you eat carbohydrates, turns into carbon dioxide that you breathe off and water that you pee out. Those are the only waste products of sugars. But you're running on fats. You are generating fatty acids and ketones and uric acid. This is a dirty fuel, and your body's got to deal with these waste products. Been well shown, and Dr. Michael Greger has some good pieces on his nutritionfacts.org website. High protein diets hurt the kidneys. We were never meant to deal with these high protein loads meal after meal after meal. It's one of the major reasons kidney failure is so prevalent in this country. And a good nephrologist, who he's got a patient going into kidney failure, first thing he does, put him on a low protein diet. They know how toxic protein is. And the paleo folks are saying more protein, more protein, more protein. These folks are writing themselves a ticket to the dialysis machine. If you are eating animal flesh, you're eating a molecule called carnitine. It's part of every animal muscle. Hear this. The food we eat determines the bacteria that live in our gut. Our microbiome, these trillions of microbes that live in our intestinal tract, is determined by the food we eat. You eat a bunch of sugars, you're going to summon up sugar-eating bacteria. You eat a bunch of meat and eggs every day. You're eating a tremendous amount of carnitine and choline in the eggs. Well, natural law, you're going to summon up bacteria that eat carnitine and choline. They have names: Clostridia, Streptococci. They don't care about you. They can't wait for that next chicken breast without the skin to come down, or that next salmon steak to come down, because they will take this carnitine and choline and turn it into stuff called trimethylamine. Who cares? Well, you should, because your liver will take that trimethylamine and turn it into trimethylamine oxide. This is a molecule from hell. This drives cholesterol into the artery walls. And these paleo guys at the gym working out in their buff bodies, these are the ones who drop dead on the treadmill at 49. And they do the autopsy, and he's all clogged up. Oh, he looks so healthy. His cholesterol went down. Where did the cholesterol go? Into his artery walls, among other places. We are not, your cat, a mountain lion, will never have this problem. They never develop atherosclerosis. But we are herbivores. In an herbivore body, we eat the diet of mountain lions. We pay severe penalties for it, and this is one. Another molecule that the paleo folks are eating every day, stuff called endotoxin. Where does it come from? It comes from bacteria. Where do the bacteria come from? From the guts of the animals. The slaughterhouses are reeking with the gut bacteria of the cows and pigs and chicken and sheep that they eviscerate all day. Every cutting surface in the slaughterhouse has a film of bacteria on it. Every piece of meat that the paleo folks buy, organic or not, is covered with gram-negative bacteria from the animal's guts. These bacteria die, and when they die, their cell walls break up and release this stuff called endotoxin. This is a nasty molecule. This sets off inflammatory reactions throughout the body, raises your white blood cell count, makes your gut leaky. I'll show you that in a minute. And just to point out, endotoxin is heat stable. When you cook the burger, doesn't get rid of the endotoxin. When you deep fry the chicken, doesn't get rid of the endotoxin. You're still eating the stuff. And one of the charming effects of endotoxin is on your intestinal wall. Here's the wall of your intestine. Here's food going by up on top here. The job of the intestine is to absorb food molecules into your bloodstream and send them to the rest of your body. But the intestinal tract has an important barrier function. There's a lot of stuff going by in the food stream you do not want in your bloodstream. Undigested food proteins, the breakdown product of bacterial cell walls, yeast fragments. You don't want that in your gut, in your bloodstream. And a healthy gut wall will not allow these molecules to get in your bloodstream. But endotoxin damages the seal between these cells, the tight junction, and as a result, molecular spaces open up between the cells, and big molecules that have no business getting into your bloodstream start flowing through your tissues. They flow through your joint membranes, set off inflammatory arthritis, flow through your bronchial membranes, set off asthma, flow through your immune system, set off lupus, various autoimmune diseases, a gift of the endotoxin and other molecules that we ingest. But our paleo folks are eating this stuff 3 times a day. Animal muscle has a stuff in it called Nu-5GC. Only animals make this. This is a very inflammatory molecule. You can find this stuff in the joints of rheumatoid arthritis patients, in the plaques of coronary artery patients, and only meat has it, and our paleo friends are eating it 3 times a day. And if you do a search on Nu-5GC, you'll see the inflammatory reaction that it sets off. And finally, well, not finally, but if someone asks me, Doc, I want to cause a colon cancer, how do you think I should go about this? It's simple. Pack your colon full of meat 3 times a day. Let that sit on your colon wall and rub those carcinogens that get created by cooking the meat. They got a long time to rub against the colon wall here. It's no accident that most cancers start in the descending and sigmoid colon. That's where the exposure time is the longest. That's where the fecal mass remains the longest and rubs on the colon wall. The links between flesh eating and colon cancer are beyond dispute at this point. And finally, fats clog up your insulin receptors. All these folks are insulin resistant. This is why they say stay away from carbs, because when they've been eating this kind of diet, the fat, and it's a high-fat diet, infiltrates into their muscles. And this stuff called intramyocellular lipid, it's fat in the muscle cells, starts building up, clogs their insulin receptors from the inside, and they go diabetic. So when they eat sugar, their blood sugar spikes up because the sugar can't get into the cells because their insulin receptors are all blocked up. So that's why they say stay away from those carbs. But us plant eaters, there's no reason to stay away from carbohydrates. Our insulin receptors are open. You eat rice or quinoa or carrots, blood sugar will go up, comes right down. But the paleo folks create this problem for themselves with this high-fat diet, and then they blame those carbs when the carbohydrates are innocent. We are carbohydrate-burning organisms. It's all this fat that's causing the problems. So I don't care how fit and buff these folks look on the outside. On the inside, as a physician, my fear is these nice folks are setting themselves up for an epidemic of colon cancer, heart attacks, strokes, autoimmune diseases, diabetes, inflammatory bowel disease, Crohn's disease, colitis. This is a diet of death. It's mostly young people that are into this, and when you're 25, you can eat linoleum glue and get away with it, you know. But don't think they're getting away with anything. They're creating old man's diseases and old woman's diseases in their arteries and in their lymph nodes and in their breast and their prostate gland and their immune system. This is not a healthy diet. This transgresses natural laws from our anatomy to our behavior and our very nature. And in my opinion, this whole philosophy is totally beyond outrageous. Middle of this century, this planet is going to have 8 billion human beings on it. Are these paleo folks with a straight face proposing, oh, paleo diet's the best, everybody ought to be eating paleo? Are you talking really about a meat meal 3 times a day for 8 billion people? You would need 3 planet Earths to create that much animal flesh. This is a totally arrogant, elitist, unsustainable food program that's being promoted. And it's beyond irresponsible when we realize that every single environmental threat that we face today, deforestation, soil erosion, water pollution, water depletion, pesticide use, species extinction, climate change from global warming, every one of these is driven by the large-scale industrial production of animal flesh. That's why the forests are being cut down. That's where the soil is being eroded off corn and soybean fields in the Midwest, growing cheap animal fodder for cheeseburgers. Water depletion, the majority of water in this country goes to irrigate alfalfa, corn, and soybeans. Water pollution, a feedlot with 100,000 animals, not very many, with 20,000 animals, produces the same amount of sewage as the city of Cincinnati every day, and these cows do not pay taxes for sewage treatment plants, and it winds up in the water. Most pesticides and herbicides are sprayed on corn and soybean fields. The forests and prairies are being cleared, costing these animals their habitat to make grazing land for cattle or grow their crops. And the majority of greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, are coming from 60 billion animals on this planet that are raised every year. They're all breathing out carbon dioxide. They're all belching out methane. They are eating grains that have been grown on fields where ammonia-containing fertilizers have been sprayed, so the nitrous oxide goes up in the air. Animal flesh is driving the global warming. For the taste of flesh, we have no need for it metabolically, but we like that taste of flesh in our mouth. For the taste of flesh, that is why this world is heating up. I want to ask how many folks have grandchildren here. I suspect quite a few. Nieces, nephews, I've got a couple, little kids. The world we are leaving them may become unlivable by the middle of this century. And it's not for lack of electric cars. It's for this overwhelming, insatiable appetite for animal flesh, never before seen in human history, that's driving the climate change that we're all fearing. These poor bears are on that iceberg because of our desire for cheap cheeseburgers. And we are clear-cutting the oceans. We are strip mining them with these miles-long nets that scoop up everything. And for that wild-caught salmon on your plate, what they don't show you are the dozens of albatrosses and seagulls and sea turtles that have been snared in the lines, and the sharks and the whales and the dolphins that are drowned in the nets. They don't even think about them. Well, we are going to leave our children an ocean full of jellyfish. If we keep eating fish for our omega-3s, which you don't need, you get it out of algae. If you want to learn about the environmental effects of our diet, start with John Robbins' wonderful book, Diet for New America. You can read the United Nations report, Livestock's Long Shadow. They called it back in the late 90s. But the best book, if you want to educate yourself about what the production of animal flesh is doing to this planet and our future, I urge you, go to the website of Dr. Richard Oppenlander called Comfortably Unaware and read his book by the same title, Comfortably Unaware, which is exactly where the meat and dairy industries want you. Don't think about where that burger's coming from. But have no illusion every time we're in the restaurant and you look at the waiter or the waitress and say, I'll have the beef, I'll have the chicken, I'll have the lamb, I'll have the veal. Your grandchildren's world gets a little deader, gets a little hotter, gets a little drier. We can't keep kidding ourselves that these foods come from the farm somewhere. They come from our kids' future. That's where they're coming from. And we owe them. I'm working for them. I'm working for the kids and the animals and the planet from this point on. And because I owe them. I plundered their planet. When I was growing up, I didn't think twice about the burgers I ate. Well, I'm sure thinking about it now, and I've got a lot to make up for. So where does it all begin? Because when the people say to me, Doc, I tried to be a vegan, it didn't work for me. I tried it for a few weeks, I started feeling bad, and I ate some meat and I feel better. Is he kidding me? Is he lying? No, he's telling the truth. What is happening? What explains this phenomenon? I feel like so many other problems that we face, the problem begins in our earliest years. At age 6 months of age, the baby is still nursing at the breast, still sucking on the bottle. And at 6 months of age, with all the loving intent in the world, that jar of baby lamb, baby chicken, baby turkey is opened and spooned into that baby's mouth. And from that point on, 3 times a day, animal flesh is slathered on that child's intestinal tract, day after day, all through infancy. By age 2 or 3, they're in McDonald's eating their Happy Meals. They've adopted a flesh-based diet. All through their childhood, their puberty, their teen years, their 20s, their 30s, their 40s. 3 times a day you are slathering animal flesh in your intestinal tract. The body will adapt. The mucus that the intestines secrete will be the most efficient mucus for extracting nutrients out of that high-fat, high-sugar, high-protein food stream. The intestinal membrane enzymes will be the most efficient for absorbing nutrients out of that high-fat, high-sugar, high-protein food stream. Your liver enzymes will set up to be the most efficient dealing with that high-fat, high-sugar, high-protein, low-fiber food stream. And very importantly, because you're eating the muscle of an animal, molecules from that animal's muscle, carnitine, creatine, myoglobin, things that your body makes, are coming in 3 times a day preformed. Well, as the years go by, your body says, hey man, if this carnitine and creatine is coming in 3 times a day preformed, I don't have to make it. And your genes start to downregulate. You get downregulation of your own ability to make carnitine and creatine. It's still there, but it's downregulated. Well, at that point, you become dependent upon that animal flesh coming in 3 times a day. For 30 years, 40 years, till finally you come to a lecture like this, you read John Robbins' books, you see Forks Over Knives, you see Eat What the Health. Suddenly the plant-based light goes on. Oh my heavens, I'm going to be a vegan. Wonderful. Your body's probably happier, the animals are happier, the planet's happier, but what have you done? At age 40, or whenever it is, you've done a 180-degree turn on the food stream. Instead of high in fats, low in fat. Instead of high in protein, low in protein. Instead of high in simple sugars, low in simple sugars. Instead of low in fiber, high in fiber. And suddenly all those preformed animal nutrients, the carnitine, creatine, gone. Now you got to make your own, now. Most folks can do it, but some may take a while to gear up their enzymes to make these molecules, and in the meantime, they're drawing down on their own supply of carnitine, creatine, et cetera. And as the months go by, I'm not feeling so good, doc. And they start dreaming of steaks and salmon, and they start eating some flesh, and those nutrients, those animal nutrients, flood to their tissues. Whoa, I feel great. I'm vegan, schmegan, man, I'm a carnivore, I'm a paleo guy, I need my meat. And this is what we see. But what are we watching, really? This is not normal human physiology. This is an acquired dependency created by feeding a human hominid child animal flesh 3 times a day from infancy. You will create a dependency upon animal flesh. I've delivered over 400 babies in my career, and I've watched about 25 of them been vegan kids, and I watched them grow up. I got enough gray hairs now. Watched them grow up, marry other vegan children, and have their own vegan kids who grows up, becomes a strong, healthy, bright vegan kid, married another vegan child. I've now seen 3 generations of vegan children grow up. Big, strong, healthy, smart. Guess what? They don't have meat cravings. Their mouths don't water when they walk past a barbecue. They are metabolically different creatures, and they are not going to develop the breast lumps and the prostate cancer and the clogged arteries and everything else that the standard diet creates. But this is where I believe this craving for the flesh is coming from, and why some folks don't succeed on a vegan diet. So what do I do? What do I tell them? They're sitting in my office saying, Doc, I tried this vegan thing and it ain't working. I don't feel that great. Because I know that long inhibited genes have to be turned on. The mucus quality in their intestines has to change. The enzymes in their gut wall has to change. The microbes in their gut have to change. Their physiology in their liver has to change. Billions of chemical reactions have to change to adapt to this. Most folks can do it within a week. But some people are going to take longer. And that's okay. It's okay. Some people may take months and months and months if they want to make this transition. It's okay. Everybody's different. And we got to allow for those early years and the imprinting that was done on their metabolism. So what do I tell them? They're sitting across from me in the office. Doc, I know this flesh isn't good for me, but I feel better when I eat it. I say, okay, here's my strategy. I say, if you feel your body must, I got to have some animal protein. All right, fair enough. Consider it medicinal. You're not eating this stuff because you like that steak in your mouth taste. You have a dependency on this stuff. You do. I say consider animal flesh like a very expensive vitamin tablet that's toxic in large amounts. And don't take handfuls of multivitamins. Don't be eating big slabs of any kind of flesh. I tell them find the smallest amount of animal flesh you think your body requires. It's usually about 3 ounces, the size of a deck of playing cards. Produced in the least injurious way. I don't know what that means anymore. Probably not feedlot beef, but grass-fed beef's even worse for the planet. And all of them are bad for the individual animal. They don't care why you're killing them. But consume it as seldom as you can. Have a little piece on Monday. Coast on that for as long as you can. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, until you feel that you got to have a little more. And have another little 3-ounce piece. And coast on that for as long as you can, with the goal of excluding it altogether. And that's what happens. If these folks really want to get off the meat habit, they can. I've had folks lead true doc, I feel better on this plant stuff, but I'm going to eat meat twice a week. Okay, sure beats 3 times a day. If everybody in America ate flesh only twice a week, I'd be a happy doc. Boy, everything would be better for all of us. Okay, twice a week. But they come back in the office 3 months later, how you doing? Okay, we only have meat once a week now, and we eat it. And then they come in the office 3 months later, so you still eat meat? Yeah, I think we had it twice last month. We don't eat it very much anymore. And then 3 months later you tell them, we stopped buying this stuff. And because their enzymes gear up and they suddenly don't need it. And so if you want to get off it, you can, and I really urge people to do that. I'm going to eat it once a week, all right, if I've got to be in a world where people eat flesh once a week, it'd be a much, much better world, and I could probably hang up my stethoscope and go surfing. So, the truth is, if someone eats animal flesh more than a few times a week, and certainly more than a few times a day, it's not because their body needs some animal protein, because they like the taste of flesh in their mouth. And it's an expensive and dangerous habit that threatens their health and all of our futures. We have to change from our current animal-based diet, where there's a piece of animal in the center of every meal, to a plant-based diet. What do we have for dinner? We're having bean burritos tonight. We're having lentil stew tonight. We're having tofu stir-fry tonight. We're having veggie burgers tonight. We got to make that change. When one adopts a whole food plant-based diet, the changes in your health are spectacular. But this diet will also heal the planet. As we adopt a plant-based diet, everything gets better. The forests come back, the soil stabilizes, the water runs pure again, there'll be enough water, the global warming will stabilize. We will save billions of dollars in surgeries not done, in workdays not lost. We are going to spend trillions of dollars on climate change anyway. We're going to mitigate that. It costs nothing. Everybody can adopt a plant-based diet. What about the farmers and ranchers? You're going to throw them off the land? No, help these people. They're growing our food. Help them transition to growing plants. Buy their food, buy their seeds for them, buy their tractors, send them to agricultural school. Help these people, send their kids to college. We've seen big changes before. Berlin Wall came down. We can change our diet as well. Again, if you want to know more about this, again, go to my website. There's plant-based diet, how to thrive on it. And I've got in the answer section, I've got one called an article, My Problems with the Paleo Diet, if you want to read that. Okay, went a little long, but I think it was important material to cover, and I'll be glad to take your questions. Thank you for your informative presentation. Good. As a pre-med student with a background in toxicology and nutrition, I looked at the American medical curriculum with horror at the high focus on pharmacology and non-holistic treatments that completely disregards nutrition. What would you advise an aspiring primary care physician, MD, to search for in his professional medical education? How can I become knowledgeable and nutrition-based physician in today's American medical education system? That is the key task that must be done. Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine is sending me around to medical schools to talk to medical students and give them the lecture I wish someone had given me when I was a third-year med student. And we are starting to get this curriculum out into the medical schools. I was at University of Rochester 2 months ago. I'll be at University of Arkansas soon. We're starting to get this information out. I would tell young doctors and old doctors, learn the basic sciences, learn the biochemistry, the nutrition, the physiology, but realize the majority of diseases you're seeing in the emergency room and the operating room are from what your patients are eating. And in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. Once you know that, you can work with these, find a plant-based dietitian, refer these people to, and get them healthy, and that will treat your colleagues. It's a difficult time to work on this frontier, but we have no choice. We must change the medical education system in this country, and I'm working to do that. Will the body turn carbohydrates into fat? No, it cannot do that. With the exception of high fructose corn syrup, the body will not take that little glucose ring, break it apart, and construct this long chain fatty acids. It will not do that. Your body cannot turn carbohydrates into fat. If you eat a high carbohydrate dinner, you have a couple of potatoes and a plate of rice for dinner. All those carbohydrates get in your blood. You will replete the glycogen stores in your muscles, and once they are filled, you will burn that extra energy off as heat. You'll get in bed and you'll push your foot out from the covers. You'll throw the covers off, and your body temperature will go up a quarter of a degree, and you will disperse that carbohydrate energy off as heat to the air. It cannot and will not turn into fats. If you are eating a high-fat diet, like a paleo diet, and eat carbohydrates, the body will immediately start burning those carbohydrates and store the fat in the meat. And that's why the paleo folks say carbs make you fat. No, they don't. The carbohydrates make you store the fat in the meat that you're eating. That's what makes you fat. But if you eat the carbohydrates, you'll burn that off as heat. It's wonderful that you came. I hope this has been informative for you. Keep supporting the VSH.
Mahalo to all of you for coming tonight. Have a safe return home. Good night, everyone.